So my wife and I spent a lot of time in Tamil Nadu. My wife loved it. She loved puja. She loved chanting. She loved everything about it. This guru would say, you never have to worry because whenever someone is close to God, God will send a golden chariot. So Desiree dies, and I'm in a way, I'm like, this wasn't what's supposed to happen. And where is my golden chariot? When it came time for the cremation and they wanted to take her away, I said, no. I'm like, you can't take the coffin. I have to be the one to put the coffin in the furnace. I just felt like I had to be there with her up until the very end. I went down to where the furnaces were, and there was a big blue wall, and on the wall was painted a golden chariot.
I'm getting goosebumps. When you meet like-minded people who are in the same space of finding possibilities, just like Second Act, I just grab such people. And Robert Pardi, you are one of them. Thank you for coming into my life. Thank you for creating possibilities. You're a possibility coach. So there is going to be so much conversation around why people don't see possibilities, or what happens to us that once we are in the middle of, let's say, disasters, only then we see possibilities. Why don't we see beforehand and work on ourselves? So welcome, my dear friend. I haven't introduced you fully, but I give the stage to you. I'm just excited that you are joining us from Italy. Where are you right now? Are you in Italy or where?
I'm in Italy right now, yes.
Yes. So welcome to Second Act Podcast. This is season 3, Robert. And I think you must be my 120th some guest. So it's a long drive I have covered with so many Second Act stories, but I'm sure that your story will be different than anybody else because you've had a very conscious life that you're leading, not only for yourself, but for others around you. So I'm very excited to welcome you.
Well, I am thrilled to be here, thrilled to be part of the 120-something guest family that you have, and that you grabbed me when we first started talking. It was one of those things that you and I, we're like-minded, and yet we're somewhat diverse, and we complement each other. And I just think that is the beauty of all of this. And those that are listening, yes, I'm in Italy, but I'm a New Yorker. But I decided to move to Italy. I am Italian as well, but so that's where I am at the moment. And I'll leave it up to you. What would you like me to start? Would you like me to start with a little bit of my story, or?
Yeah, I think because I think then it will set the context of our next questions. If you tell us a little bit about you from New York, why did you come back to Italy? Why did you go to New York in the first place? Let's create a backstory.
Sure. Okay. So, and I'm going to go all the way to my childhood. So I was actually born in New York. Oh. So I am a pure New Yorker, New York City kid. Okay. And I'm starting with my childhood because I think it's very important for people to understand. I grew up with an abusive alcoholic father. And while that sounds big in and of itself, what I realize is that taught me all the life lessons that allowed me to see possibilities, that allowed me to pursue things or deal with things that maybe I wouldn't have had the skill set for. Then moving, further along, I'm 19. I meet a 17-year-old young woman that was just spectacular wow. In every single way. And we got married very, very young. At the height of our everything, I had just gotten my MBA from Columbia. I was recruited by the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority, and my wife was finishing up her PhD. She did an MD and PhD. She was diagnosed with late-stage breast cancer right before her 31st birthday. Oh my God. And that changed everything. And during the 11 years that she journeyed with breast cancer, my perspective changed, my purpose changed, my passions changed. And so after she passed away, I asked a question, which is very much connected to Second Act, was, okay, what is an amazing story that can come from this? And I looked at everything around me, and I like all kinds of metaphors. So everything fell apart, and I had a bunch of rubble, and I had to try to figure out how to make a mosaic. And I thought about what would that mosaic look like, that second act. And part of that was to move to Italy, because it was a dream to always live in Italy. And I said, why not? I also thought to myself, I didn't do the what if I fail question. I asked myself, what if I really do it? What if I succeed? What if I pull it off? I mean, that would be just so amazing. So that's what brought me here, but I'll leave it for you to ask more questions, because I know that's a lot, right?
Yes. But tell me, how did you get so courageous?
I honestly, to tell you the truth, maybe my nature, but also my father's mother, my paternal grandmother, was just a little firecracker. This little short Italian woman. She only finished the 4th grade, but she was a firecracker. She lost her husband before I was born, so I never knew my grandfather. But 2 things. One, my father was the example of what I didn't want to be. So he was my anti-role model. And I think that fostered some courage. Also, I had my grandmother's support saying, look, he's a slave to alcohol. Look, he can't make his own choices. You can be stronger than this. So I had that motivation as a kid. I had that support. And I'll be perfectly honest, one day it was a really bad, let's say, abusive situation. And I finally protected myself. I joke that it was the time of Rocky, and I was drinking the raw eggs, and I was exercising. I was 13 years old, and I had some muscle, right? So I was able to defend myself. And that was the moment that I realized that we do have power. Now, one thing that I say is, when I was younger, anger fueled me. It's a motivator, anger. It certainly is. It is not sustainable at all. Wow. When I met Desiree and I fell in love, and I mean, I experienced love in a way that was incredible. She and I had this fantastic relationship. I realized how much more powerful positive motivation is. Instead of fighting against something, actually moving towards something. Wow. And so, but the courage, I say more, it was somewhat of a choice. It was somewhat of, having the dad I had to find role models. And I started reading books about war heroes and all kinds of other people. And I think I was just absorbing, that's who I want to be. That's who I want to be. Because I think our self-narrative is completely under our control when we make conscious choices, which is how we build our second act, right?
You said it, my dear friend, you said it. But if I read, from your website and of course from your LinkedIn also, you say that I'm in my mission to inspire and motivate people to remove the unnecessary, shift their mindset and become the scriptwriter, director, and the main character of their life. This requires making conscious choices and the result of living life intentionally. While this sounds perfect, Robert, we are humans. We are, if everybody could do it, we would all just do it, right? But it does take something else to create this. So what is that something else?
That's a great question. Now, I will say, I think we could all do it, but you're right. It's not easy. And it's not easy because we've become habituated to the life we have, the role we play in our lives, the role we play in other people's lives. So when you think of my situation or Desiree's situation, my wife's name was Desiree, and a doctor gives you a note and says, your time is running out, you will become intentional about how you're living your life. So part of the transition is really for people, as hard as it sounds, as hard as it sounds to hear this right now, is to accept we all have a terminal disease. The train we're on is going to stop at some terminal. We don't know which terminal. And so it's to sit down and say, okay, is this the story I want to look back on? Once we realize how precious time is, and that's where a lot of the work comes from, because we will only make changes in our life when the benefit of the change is bigger than the fear of the change. And that's why a medical diagnosis completely shifts everything, because all of a sudden people, the benefit of changing their life. So for those people that are listening, the first thing is to contemplate the fact that everything is impermanent. The second thing is to realize that the life you have right now, you have practiced. You practice day in and day out to live the life you want, because people are also like, it's going to take me forever to change, or I don't know how to do it. It's small steps in your behavior brought you to where you are today. If you want a second act, that means taking small steps towards that second act, and they have to be almost non-threatening. So we don't have that voice in the back of our head saying, oh, you know what? You better be careful. Oh, you know what? That's a big step. You're at risk. Just a little thing every day. And then before you know it, you're moving towards that. So the first thing to answer your question in a long-winded way is we have to realize how precious our time is, and that we exchange our life's energy for what we're living. And if it doesn't feel right, then invest your energy in changing it.
I think that's such a beautiful thing that you have said here, Robert. I am remembering a story, and I want to tell about this, having the drunkard dad. So there are these two boys, and the father dies because he's been drinking for years, and the two boys come, and after many years, they meet again, and then one boy has turned a drunkard, and the other one is a healer. And then people ask, but how come? Both of you, same dad. How did you become so different? And the person who became like a drunkard, like his father, said, because my dad was a drunkard. And the boy who becomes a healer, he says, because my dad was a drunkard. And I think you chose the second one, right?
I chose the second one.
So so I just thought that I will bring that because this was so relatable, and I'm sorry if I butted into your podcast, the question, but I just thought it was so relatable.
No, I love that this is a dialogue. I mean, when you and I, we could talk forever, I think. But so what you just said, though, those are two conscious choices. One's a limiting belief and one is a growth mindset, right? My father was a drunk, so I'm a drunk.
Yes.
The other one said, my father was a drunk, so therefore I can choose to be different. And that's the power. We are blessed with the ability to make choice. But a lot of the times, if we want to choose something different, like me living in Italy, after my wife passed away, I had a tremendous amount of debt. She didn't have life insurance. I paid off the debt, and I left a well-paying career to rebuild my life. That decision alienated people from me because I was in this finance world living in Dubai, and I couldn't participate in that anymore. And so when we make these changes, we have to find the environments that support us. So that kid that became the healer found in environments that supported the belief that he wanted to be, that personality he was accepting. The drunkard, most likely, hung out in bars. So when we talk about the second act, and that's why I love the idea of your program, because the second act requires us to put the structure in place to support the next scene we want to play in the movie of our life. That's why I say We are the set director.
Yes.
We are the script writer. We are everything. We shouldn't be giving that power away to people. And therefore, one of the things I joke about all the time is if you start to shine your light, your second act is to shine your light and be more authentic, be more genuine with who you are and your uniqueness. If people need to put on sunglasses, they're not the right people for you.
Yeah, so true. So rightly said. But I have come across a lot of people who have this, what should I say, like being in the victim mode, blaming the world for everything that went wrong. You have had a lot of downhills in your life. Things did not go the way that probably you anticipated. Did you ever blame things, God, the higher power around you to say, what the hell, why me?
That's a great question. So I'm going to say something that is rather interesting, very tied to India as well. But I never really ever found myself in the victim mode. Maybe again because of who my father was, and him having migraines and having to go into the bedroom because he was drinking so much. And the thing about whatever we choose, victim, survivor, thriver, whatever identity we're going to fall into, we're going to be rewarded by that. Every single behavior we're engaging in because there's some sort of reward, even if it's negative. So if you're a victim, people say, oh, I'm sorry. And you get that constant, oh, people care about me. They're patting me on the back. They're hugging me. But so I never really had the anger or blamed, but I remember, so my wife and I spent a lot of time in Tamil Nadu.
Oh, yes.
And yeah, so her oncologist, he was an alternative, he was regular chemotherapy, but also herbals and all that other stuff, and plus a lot of meditation. He followed a guru in India, and one time he invited us. So we went there, and then we went there a couple more times. My wife loved it. She loved puja. She loved chanting. She loved everything about it. So this guru would say, you never have to worry because whenever someone is close to God, God will send a golden chariot. So Desiree dies, and I'm in a way, I'm like, this wasn't what's supposed to happen. And where is my golden chariot? Well, Desiree wanted to be cremated. And so when it came time for the cremation and they wanted to take her away, I said, no. I'm like, you can't take the coffin. I have to be the one to put the coffin in the furnace. I just felt like I had to be there with her up until the very end. A crazy thing to do, I know. But so when they finally said yes, I went down to where the furnaces were, and there was a big blue wall, and on the wall was painted a golden chariot.
I'm getting goosebumps.
I had the people upstairs come down, and people were taking pictures of the golden chariot. So I joke about it, meaning that I had this anger of, okay, I believe in all of this stuff, but I haven't seen one sign. Like, it wasn't more the victim mentality. It was more, why can't you support my faith in a way? So maybe it was a little victim if I think about it, but there was the golden chariot. But I've never blamed, because have you ever heard the parable of the man and the horse?
Yes.
The Zen parable? Yeah. Good, bad, who knows, right? So we don't know what this whole journey is going to be, but if we're sitting there blaming all the time, our energy is going towards nothing constructive.
How did you heal? How did you process all this?
So I think for me, healing comes from creation. Mm-hmm. And that's a great question, because taking everything that was inside, like talking about that mosaic, I really truly believe that the healing comes from building something from the rubble. The healing comes from understanding that there is still life. The healing comes from understanding that we have the power. So it was in always, it's that action idea, right? It's putting things into place. Did I need downtime? 100%. Did I cry? So often. Do I still cry? Of course I do. Do I still miss my wife? 100%. But I know, and this is what I say about Desiree, she's a beautiful scar on my heart. And for me, the healing comes from also acknowledging that the reality of a situation, not fighting against it, and realizing that, at least when we talk about the loss of someone we love, their love is integrated into your fabric. You are who you are because they loved you. And if you can say to yourself, I love myself, and that was part of the healing process for me to go through that. If I love myself, then I have to love everything that brought me to this place. And that's the healing.
Thank you for sharing.
Sure.
Okay, so what do you do right now with the possibility? What do you call your
possibility in action, which,
yes.
believe it or not, was something I used to write in my journal from the time of being a kid. Even my logo is something I would doodle all the time as a kid, because I believed in parallel universes and all that other stuff, because I was a Star Trek fan, and somewhere there was going to be a place where I wasn't going to get beat by my dad. So possibility in action is, let's say, the umbrella for many different personal growth journeys, whether it is, it was coaching, whether it is retreats, whether it is me speaking at conferences or something like that. So, or it's my books. So all of that is about getting people to understand that possibilities are all around us. And my quote is, without action, they remain in the land of wishing.
Which is so true. Yeah, we can keep sitting doing nothing. If there's no action, there is nothing going to happen in our life, right?
And here's the thing in that philosophy, it's not necessarily achieving it. The real benefit is taking so think again, we'll use another metaphor. Think of a sculpting something, taking that chisel in hand and every day chipping away and designing something. We don't know if we're going to achieve that goal or not, but it's being present in constructing your life. And that's why action is not, you don't have to pick up and move to Italy. Yeah, okay, I did. But action is all about the mental real estate, changing your mindset to be the explorer, the scientist, the adventurer. You had asked me a question, I remember once, about what's failing or failure.
Yes.
And for me, if you think about, if we're getting back to the, we're the performer and you screw up your lines in a play, okay, you learn to not do it the next time. It's all about learning. It's all about growing. So these failures, if you're a scientist, it's just more data. It's not anything else. It doesn't have to be this weight of, oh, nothing is going to work out for me. It's, oh, now I have another piece to tell me I should move a little bit in this direction.
So right from retreats and you said speaker sessions and coaching, is there a particular format you follow? Is there a particular kind of people who join you? Or is it open to just anybody who wants to probably figure out possibilities in life?
So it is usually the person that usually reaches out to me has a feeling of there has to be more than what I'm living.
Of course.
And so it's not necessarily a desire for possibility, but it's more, this is not the story I want to look back on. There has to be more to this. I just don't know how to navigate it. And so that's 9 times out of 10 who I work with. They tend to be 45 years old and up. And a lot of times It's people who have started to question, okay, I did this because it paid me a lot of money, not because it was my passion, and it's exhausted me.
Yeah.
Or of course, I also work with people who have, are suffering or journeying through grief.
Yeah. No. So if there is anything that has served you all along, through all the ups and downs of life, your life lessons, as I can put it straight. So, what are those few life lessons that you got from your life?
Okay, so first, what I'll tell everyone is I'm a big journaler. So if you want to think of anything, journaling I think is a key to a lot of this, and it's to just ask yourself questions, right? To tap into your wisdom. But the life lessons, I would say, one, I've learned that we are all resilient. Resilience is not at all for someone that is just special.
Yeah.
We're all resilient. Second, that purpose, we've made it so big, and we're all supposed to save the universe, but purpose can be cooking a meal for your family. If you're intentional, purpose is how you want to express your passions and that you want to give that to people. I say all the time, purpose is when passion comes in alignment with your values and you want to give the results away. So part of the life lesson is understanding what is your purpose. Okay, we're resilient. Gratitude, life lesson for sure. And like I said before, the idea of it's also understanding if you love yourself and you can answer yes, then you have to be grateful for everything that has happened in your life. If you answer no, then that's an indication to find out what you can change so you can love yourself. And I know this whole loving yourself sounds very woohoo for some people that are listening. It's not that it's that you are sitting in your life being happy of how you show up. The other thing, 100%, is you still have to be a kid. I am a kid at heart. I walk through life curious. I look for wonder. I have childlike enthusiasm because that fuels possibility. The more curious we are, and the more we look at things with, let's say, that beginner's mind, right? Oh, look at those beautiful flowers. Like people say, you live in a town of 900 people in the middle of nowhere in Italy. Don't you get bored? And I'm like, how can I get bored? The sunset is different every day. The sounds are different. There are all these pieces of, let's say, magic around us. That's all free. So big life lesson is to stay in that childlike curiosity, the wonder of life, and allow yourself to play. We as adults, everything has an objective. The older we get, we have a goal for everything.
Yeah.
And we don't give ourselves that space to just daydream and just be. And daydreaming is so important because it fuels everything. When I work with people after they've lost a loved one, the first thing I do is I say, just daydream about stuff. You don't have to rebuild your life. You don't, you have a big hole like this because of a loss in your life. You're not going to find something to fill that hole right away. You'll find small little pebbles. Those little pebbles are going to come from daydreaming. But allow yourself just to be open. So that's the other life lesson I would say as well. The more open you could be, the more curious, the more daydreaming. It doesn't mean you don't do your job and pay your bills, and but those are very important skills.
So if I ask you from the seasons that are existing in the world, what season are you in right now of your life?
Wow. I'd say I'm definitely in spring.
Wow.
I'm definitely in spring. Now, I'm an autumn guy, just so everybody knows. I love the autumn. I love the colors. My wife and I were married in October. She was born in October. I love that season and Northeast, in the United States because of all the colors. But I say the spring because I continue to see new and new growth. And I want to embrace that growth.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you.
You're most welcome.
By the way, these are fantastic answers.
Well,
Very
as long
deep.
as they're good for your audience. I hope your audience is getting some nuggets, because that's my whole mission here.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just loving this conversation because I do this work all the time, and it's like a sounding board, like, because you get a partner who shares something, and then you feel, okay, yeah, you know what, like, how do I think sometimes when I'm stuck with something like this? And then here you are. Okay. So through your life so far, of course, you've met a lot of people, and a lot of people, especially after the pandemic, are going through a lot of changes, whether it's physical, whether it's mental. I think we've all shaken, and there is no continuity, or there's no certainty to things anymore. What are you feeling with your work?
Oh, well, I can tell you that feeling of disillusionment, I think is the word I would use, has become exacerbated because of the experience of COVID, because it really did shine a light on how we were living. We didn't have that like I talked about my dad, he was the anti-role model. We were all sort of, I don't mean it to come across this way, but it's the visual that's come to my mind. We were all sort of those sheep following the same thing. And then all of a sudden we were able to work from home. We started questioning, well, wow, people are dying all around us. Is this really how I want to spend my life? So I think what COVID did is it shook people, or it awakened people to alternatives. The issue a lot of people are facing right now is the frustration of, I don't know how to go forward, but I also don't want to go back to what I was. And so they feel stuck. And I think that feeling of stuckness is also what's causing a lot of, let's say, the anxiety and the anger, and because people feel a little lost right now.
So what's your advice to them?
So my advice is to listen to the SecondAct podcast and get great bits of wisdom. No, but really, I don't joke about that. My advice number one is to allow yourself to absorb new content, new information. I would also go back to the whole idea of daydreaming. Don't try to figure it out. Just allow yourself to wonder, what if I could? What if I could? What would it be like if? Ask yourself these very broad questions just to start to stimulate alternatives. And the next thing as well, the ancient philosophers did not tell us to read 1,000 books and study life. They told us to, find something and put it into action. They told us you don't study life, you live life. So one of the things would be, okay, so if you've heard something somewhere, wherever it's, whatever medium you read it or you saw it, how can you put that into your life? And again, let's go back to what I said earlier. Where we are right now, we have practiced day in and day out, very unconsciously, because all that becomes, habitual after, or we would have to remember how to tie our shoes every day, and that would be awful. So, now you have to practice something new. So what's that one small thing? Don't give yourself this, I'm going to go to the gym and first I'm going to get fit and I'm going to lose 50 pounds. Think about the identity more than the result. I'm going to become somebody that's healthy. Let's say a drinker or a smoker. No, I can't have a drink because I'm trying not to drink, or I'm not having a drink because I'm a non-drinker. I'm not having a cigarette because I'm a non-smoker. What is the identity you want in, let's say, the second act after COVID, the second act of your life? And those are the little things that I would say to do that someone can do on their own. Of course, there are all these programs and coaching and all of this other stuff, but a lot of this can be started by just dabbling a little bit in different ideas.
But I'll take this one, that just live life.
Let's just live life.
It's so powerful in itself. Don't read life, don't study life, just live life.
Just live, yes.
So, Robert, my next question is, do you believe in the power of manifestation?
Yes.
And
So
what is that?
So, yeah, okay. So that, this idea of manifestation and the law of attraction, and we can't just sit there and imagine, and that's where it's going to come and fall from the sky, right? When I say I believe in the power of manifestation, is that you and I are talking right now across something that was in someone's imagination, and they manifested it by putting pieces together, by taking action, by building it, an airplane, a phone, or anything that we can think of. So if you want to manifest something in your life, step into the feeling of what it would be like to have that. But that's just, in a way, motivation. Like, if you think about, for me, my dream, when I sat there and I said, you know what, I'd really like to live in Italy. And I felt how cool that would be. What an amazing story. And I was like, all right, well, I don't know. I don't have a job. I don't have a house. I don't speak the language. I don't know anyone. What am I going to do? I had to put the pieces in place. So manifestation, in my opinion, comes from putting yourself in that emotional state. Like they say in many of the books, I think it's Wayne Dwyer or somebody like that has said, you have to feel as if it's already happened. Now, I think that can throw people off because we have that little voice in the back of our head that says, what are you doing? You're fooling yourself. It's not happened. Right? And so, no, it's just, how would I feel if this happened? What would it feel like if? And then you'd be like, that's a really good feeling. What can I do to have that feeling? I don't believe in the fake it till you make it type thing. I think you got to work at it to make it happen.
Yeah.
But if you feel it internally, that's going to drive you forward, because it's such a good feeling to think about how good it would feel to have that dream. For a lot of people, it's money, and there are things you have to do to get money, right? So it's not that you could just sit there, wow, it feels so good if I had $1 million right now, and then just, go and buy a lottery ticket. That's not manifestation. But think about what you could do to get that $1 million, because that's the desire. Yeah.
That's bang on, I have to say. Because when you do this power of manifestation, people think, okay, I will manifest every day. I want $1 million, $1 million, $1 million, and then suddenly $1 million will come. So nothing of the sort will happen.
There's the story about Jim Carrey, right? And Jim Carrey had that check in his wallet for like 10 years for, I don't know, a couple $1 million, and it happened. But he also went out there, he went on auditions, he kept, it wasn't that he just sat in his house and said one day, I'm going to get all this money by being a famous actor and nobody knows me, but they're going to come knock on my door in 10 years and say, we need you. No, he went out every day with the belief that he was going to make it happen, because he felt that that's what his heart wanted. So anyway, yeah.
So when did you start writing? Was it just when you started to work on yourself, or it was even before, when your wife was there and you were married still?
Wow, that's a great question. So I didn't remember this until after I wrote the first book. So my first book is Chasing Life, and it's the story about my wife and I. But as I was writing that, I remembered when I was a young boy, I used to win writing events.
Wow.
And my dad used to beat me, saying that was a very girly thing to do, that I should be out playing football and baseball and everything else. I shouldn't be writing. I shouldn't be painting. I shouldn't be doing those things because I was a boy. So I didn't realize how much I loved to write. Now, I've been journaling pretty much my whole life. I can't remember when I wasn't journaling. My journaling is very different because I speed journal where I can't read what I'm writing. And after the journal is full, I throw it away. I don't go back and reread my stuff. I couldn't reread it anyway, but I believe if I have to, I can't study those lessons. If that lesson comes up again, I'm going to journal about it again until it becomes part of me. It's the difference between learning and understanding. But I didn't realize how much I love to write. So after I wrote Chasing Life, I wrote 2 more books in the same year.
Wow. 2 more books in the same year.
Because it just all it just all came out. It was all in there. So and Chasing Life, actually, the story behind that book is my wife and I met this amazing woman in the chemotherapy center who was going through her treatment, and we all became friends. Mm-hmm. After my wife passed away, she told me, she's like, you should write a book. And I was like, I don't know about that. Like I needed to find who I was first. During COVID, and she asked me a lot of stories over the years about so tell me more about how the 2 of you met, blah, blah, blah. During COVID, she said, Robert, you really need to write your story because you and Desiree confronted adversity in a state of joy. Because one of the things I'm known for saying is adversity should not be the dominant color on the canvas of your life. Mm-hmm. It should be an accent color to highlight love and joy and accomplishment, whatever the things are you want. Don't make that adversity the dominant color. So she said, you say this and people need to hear this now during COVID. And I said, yeah, I wouldn't even know where to start to write a book. And she gave me 25 pages. And she said, those stories you told me, I wrote them down because I knew one day you would need to write this book. That's why she's my co-author. Yeah, so just that's a gift from the universe. I mean, there's no other way around that, right? So, and as I read those stories I told her and I started to elaborate on the stories, I fell in love with Desiree, or even deeper, not all again. I fell in love with her even more. I realized how we did have the most amazing life, despite she had chemotherapy pretty much every other Friday for 11 years.
Wow.
And we traveled to India and we traveled all around the world. And she became the founding director of palliative care at New York Hospital. That's how I became a life coach, actually, because I was a finance guy. Wow. Because as a kid, I always thought money was going to save me. Money was going to get me away from my father. And that with all that anger, just get money and get away. I didn't, because Desiree she was independent. She was self-sufficient up until the last year and a half. And I left my career to help her achieve her dream of becoming the founding director of palliative care. And I realized after she passed away, and here's a question for people that are dealing with grief. Here's a point and a question. So the point is, you have to recognize you have died as well. That sounds very dramatic, but you have lost your identity if you lose a loved one. The next thing is to understand what are the things that you loved about yourself that you could bring forward, or that life. And I thought about, wow, I really liked supporting her. I liked seeing her achieve her dreams. That's a life coach. I'm going to go to life coaching school. And so that was part of second act was after she passed away, to dismantle the expectation of what my life should have been and build a new dream with pieces of the old. And the pieces of the old was that feeling of supporting. And that's where all this came from. And that's where the books came from.
So what are the other 2 books about?
Oh, sure. So the second book is extremely unusual. because the second book, in a way, was that 8-year-old boy that used to get hit by his dad for not writing. So it is written in the voice of an 8-year-old, but it's lessons I would have liked to tell my children if I had children. So it's a fable of a young boy that meets a magical creature and teaches him about possibility, imagination, magic, believing, and all of those are what make you you. So about not worrying about mistakes, about having a positive mindset. So that's the second book. And my dream is that one day parents will read it to their children. My parents never read to me, so I don't know if it's still something that people do. And then the last book I wrote is Possibility in Action. And people call it a companion, actually, but what it basically is it talks about what my philosophy is, possibility in action. And then there are 52 short stories with journaling questions to bring you towards understanding conscious living and intentional life. And then at the end, it asks you to write the story you want to look back on. So.
Like you're speaking and I'm living this life with you, by the way.
Mm.
Every word is like, so making me just go through everything. It's like a flash.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, you're most welcome.
Okay, so since you mentioned second act so many times, this is a second act podcast, Robert. And second act to many is a different meaning altogether. For me, it is power. For me, it is hope. What comes to you when you say second act so many times?
Oh, second act, for me, 100%. I'm known for saying 100% a lot of the time. So if people are already annoyed that I've said it like 1,000 times, I'm sorry, but it's my thing. But 100%, the second act for me is understanding your power to build upon your first act. Oh. So I equate this a lot to one of the things that fascinates me about living in Italy, and I lived in Rome for a while, is modern structures with one wall that was part of the ancient city.
Yeah.
And so that new identity, that new construct, whatever you call it, is for me the second act, where you've seen possibilities, you've used your power, and you've built upon your first act to be something more relevant to where you want to go, who you want to be. So I think it's the same thing. We're talking about the same thing pretty much, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's really great to know that the way that you say it, it just is so simplifying the process. It's just like, in the series 1 and 2 of my podcast as well, second act was something that you stay with and then you evolve with. So it's like the same thing, right? That you stay with it, but how do you take a step further on it?
Yes.
So it's beautiful. Thank you. I'm just remembering what I was saying. Second act is an evolution. Yes. No, I'm just forgetting my own words. I used to say it every time before the podcast. I will send that.
Well, you said power, I think, if I remember, or now I've gotten confused.
It was both keys, evolving and like staying where you are. So I'll send you that in the beginning, what I used to say. But that's quite interesting. So I'm just relating it pretty well to that. Okay, so Robert, I'm very fascinated by the title of the books that you've written, and I will buy all of them and I will read.
Oh, well, that's so sweet.
Though my kids have now grown up and they are not in a stage of reading books in the night, but I'm sure once they have their kids, I will give them as like a gift from me, a token of love, so that they make conscious children, going forward. So thank you for that.
Oh, no, that's beautiful. It is a dream of mine. And I think because I didn't have that experience as a child, and my wife, because she was diagnosed so young, and she chose a very aggressive treatment at the time, which they don't do anymore. She went directly into menopause. And so, there wasn't the possibility of us having children. But after she passed away, I was thinking about how nice it would be to share these types of things with kids, because I do feel today, I don't know what it's like in India, but in the US, kids are so protected. They're not outside. Everything is programmed. Everything is planned. When I was a kid, you climbed up trees, you fell down, you got hurt. Your parents didn't know what you were doing half the time. And it built a type of resilience and self-trust. And I think that's missing in, let's say, the younger generation, because they're not exposed to some things that I think are very critical for growth and connection.
Yeah. Robert, we have some rapid fire questions to know you better.
Oh, okay, sure.
So you're ready for it. Okay.
I am.
So if there's one thing you would want to change about your life, what would that be?
Wow. So I'm going to be perfectly honest here. I love where I live. I would like to move, though. I would like land. I would like a garden. So if there was one thing I would change, is to move to even a more rural setting.
Beautiful. What is your favorite food? Since you're Italian, do you like the usual pastas, the pizza, the raviolis? What do you like?
I really don't have a favorite, because everything is so regional. But because I live here in Abruzzo, I will say there's a type of pasta which is called pasta alla chitarra, which is an egg-based pasta, which you roll out on something that looks like a guitar, and all the little pasta fall through. So
cool. Okay, when we meet in Italy, this is my going to be my food, right, with you.
Yeah, and I know how to make it. I learned how to make it. The women in the town taught me.
So cool. Okay, so if you ever got a wish, like a magic wand, what would that magic wand do for you?
Wow. Okay. So, the immediate answer is, I'd go back in time and I'd heal my wife, and because I miss her. But honestly, because I feel so passionate about what I do, if I had a magic wand, I would want people to understand their power in constructing their own life, that they could step into that.
Very well done. Okay. What is that one word that you use very often, or one sentence? You spoke about a few, but what's your favorite?
All right, I'm gonna give you something different, because it's a quote I use often, and it's something I remind myself. I actually read it to myself in the morning because I have a list of things. So I tell most people, it is only when you value the ordinary moments that you can live an extraordinary life. We have to embrace the ordinary moments. That's where our life takes place. So it's all about that being present. So that's something new that I hadn't said. So there you go.
Yeah, but it's beautiful. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so my last question to you is, what is that one thing you want to leave us with, which you've not spoken so far?
Ooh, I think we've covered everything, but I think if I wanted to leave the listeners something, is for them to realize that everyone's journey is different. And so, don't compare yourself, because comparison is corrosive. Don't compare yourself to other people's journeys, but re-embrace admiration. Find those people that inspire you and you admire, and try to assimilate some of that into your life. Comparison is all about lack. Oh, that person has that and I don't have it. Admiration is, that person does that and I want to learn how to do it. And I think that's where you start to become powerful. If there's something I said that resonates, bring that into your life. If there's something that any of the other guests have ever said on this podcast, bring that into your life. So I would say, let's move away from comparison and Instagram, and everyone wants to be on a yacht somewhere in the Maldives. And, let's move to admiration and think about all those beautiful values people have and how to build them in ourselves.
Thank you very much, Robert. I loved this conversation, and I know that this is not the end of our journey with each other. I'm sure that you will come to India, and
yes, I will.
We will meet, and probably who never say never, as they say. Who knows? We are doing a retreat together.
That actually is something we should talk about for sure.
Yes, as they say, inshallah.
Inshallah. See.
All right. Thanks, Robert, for your time. I really appreciated that you joined in with the time difference and everything. But I do look forward to having more people like you in this world.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to be sending you some guests probably as well that I just know you're going to get along with. So I love talking to you. I really did. And the work you're doing. So my pleasure.
Thank you, Rob.
So this is yet another incredible episode of Discover Your Second Act. I'm hoping that as me, you are feeling very, very excited, enthusiastic, and learned about all the nuggets that came out. So follow us on Spotify, YouTube, Apple, and of course, until next time, keep discovering your second act.